The PGA Tour heads to Las Vegas for the Shriners Children's Open. We get your betting cards and DFS lineups locked and loaded on tonight's episode of the 19th hole. All right, welcome in, you PGA swing season degenerates. This is the 19th hole. My name is Seth Woolcock, and I am joined by Conor, the con man Coughlin. Conor, we are heading out to Las Vegas for another swing season chapter of the PGA Tour season. And I don't know about you, but Vegas, I've had some bad experiences out in Vegas, so I hope this weekend goes a little bit better for the boys.
That's all I have in Vegas, man, are bad experiences. I just leave all my money strewn across the strip. That's what I do.
I feel you, man. I've been there one time so far in my young life, and I got food poisoning like 2 days into it. NFL draft, terrible experience, barely gambled, barely got to experience it. So I will not be going back. I will not be experiencing a 4-hour flight, at least with Spirit Airlines, anytime soon, because that was some bullshit on that flight, let me tell you.
Spirit and Allegiant, man, they'll get you there, but it ain't fun.
That's for sure, man. I saw people drinking on this flight. I said, I don't know how you're drinking right now, because I feel like, no, not on that flight for sure. But Conor, as we get into the PGA swing season, how's it been for you and Bo over here? What's the difference been like from a betting and a DFS perspective as we shift into some lower class fields?
I think what's nice about Bo and I both is, like, obviously week on week we kind of live in and out of this. So I mean, a lot of the guys, even though they're lesser fields, it's guys we're familiar with, and so it's really just been a lot more focused on looking at course fit and really not being afraid to pull the trigger on somebody who maybe didn't have awesome form last season. Because a lot of these guys are still world class golfers, and put them in a lesser field on a course that makes sense, and we've been doing pretty well so far, so nothing to complain about. I'll tell you, the Ryder Cup, I don't know how much that show you caught. That was probably the biggest blow to my ego in the early season here.
Yeah, I feel it, man. And actually some kind of bigger names, I would say, at least as to what we've kind of got at Sanderson Farm last weekend and some of the other tournaments prior. We got Tom Kim. We got Adberg back as well, Siwoo Kim. So at least a couple big names at the top of the board. And I think it's going to be fun to break this down. Before we get into DFS and before we get into the betting, let's break down this course, which is TPC Summerlin. This is a desert course out in Las Vegas. Par 71, just over 7,200 yards as well on bent grass greens. And if I'm correct, Conor, the same fucker who designed this one is also responsible for the Travelers. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. There's a handful of them. Yep.
Okay.
And really, the thing you already hit on about this place is it's a desert course. But I think the thing that gets really hyped about it, and with good reason, honestly, is it plays at just over a half a mile above sea level. So not only do you get that dry desert air, but you also get the thin air with the elevation. So a lot of these guys that are considered shorter hitters by PGA standards absolutely aren't as impacted. And 7,255 yards like this place shortens up real quick.
So is that the advantage of the desert course then, is it's going to play a little bit shorter? Obviously that's going to come into play at some point as well, but how does that factor into it?
Well, it was like I was saying, I think the biggest thing is that you take guys and you add and it's not just exclusive to the short players, pretty much anybody in the field, you're going to add probably 10 to 20 yards per club.
Okay.
Just depending, the only thing that really can get in the player's way here is this course can get windy. It hasn't really done that in a few years. But if the wind kicks up here, obviously that pretty much cancels out a lot of that distance gain on certain holes. But right now, at least last I checked, the only day that it's even going to be, and I would say breezy loosely, it's about 12 to 15 mile an hour winds, is going to be Thursday. So not even that's going to slow these guys down. You got every par 5 on the course is makeable by literally everybody in the field in 2 strokes. So you're going to have a lot of looks at eagle. The par threes, even though they all measure out in excess of 190 yards, again, drop down probably and play them more like a 180, 175 on
Okay.
most of them.
Okay.
So really, there's not a whole lot of defense here. The green complex is bigger than average. The fairway is wider than average. The desert comes into play on a lot of holes, but you really got to be missing the fairway by a considerable amount to end up in those desert spots. So this should be a birdie fest, man. I mean, usually the score is mid-20s under par. So I'm kind of excited for it. Like you said, there's a couple of big name guys here. Tom Kim's your defending champ,
Yes,
24
sir.
under last year, edged out Patrick Cantlay by about
Tommy, baby.
3. So, and we are big fans of Tom Kim this week. So we'll get into him. But yeah, I wish I could really say that there was more to this, but this is basically a desert resort course. I mean, it should be straightforward.
Weather is looking fantastic as well. Maybe some moderate winds on Thursday, but besides that, it's going to be a nice day out there in the desert. And Connor, have you ever played on a desert course yourself?
Yeah, a couple times. And I grew
How'd
up.
that go?
Well, I have a tendency to pull balls off the tee, so I found the
Okay.
desert a couple times. But I did grow up playing high school golf at elevation. I grew up just outside of Denver in a little town called Golden, Colorado, and we were well in excess of a mile high, and
Okay.
it definitely makes a lot of difference. I mean, it really does. The ball
Bombs
flies
and
different.
fuckers out there,
It's
yeah.
different. Yeah. So it is a different beast, and I think that's why I do like course history is kind of a little stickier stat here. Is
Mhm.
it does take some knowledge and playing at elevation, and specifically how this course sets up. So
Awesome. Well, I appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. Looks like we got Wendy in the chat. What's up, Wendy? Thanks for joining us. We've missed you over here on the 19th hole as well. And Connor, let's go ahead. Let's break it down a little more specific in our next segment. Let's get to the betting here in Club Twirls. All right, Club Twirls here, and let's talk about the betting side of things. And in the outright markets, it's Tom Kim, no surprise, 11-1 to repeat this son of a gun, and then Ludwig Adberg coming out after a pretty nice stretch for him. Got to show up in the Ryder Cup, do a little bit of damage there, 12-1 for him, and then it kind of drops down. Then you start getting into that 22, 23 range. From a betting perspective, Connor, how are we attacking this slate? Are we going with some of these heavy favorites, or are we dipping down right away?
No, I'll play both at the top. I definitely think so. Ludwig Aubert,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
now been corrected 100 times on. Playing really well. There's some things that stand out to me that I'm not as pumped about him as I am Tom Kim. Specifically, the thing with Aubert is that he really historically so far on tour is not the most accurate of approach players. He can be a little weird off the tee from time to time. Round 3 at Sanderson actually kind of showed that. Gets a tendency to be a little left off the tee sometimes. And so I think with Aubert, it's just that I want to see more out of him. I still love the number 11-1. He's lightning hot. I mean, just probably arguably the hottest player on earth right now. So even though I'm a little sketchy based on some of his statistical modeling, I think I'll still have him. But Tom Kim, I just love Tom Kim this week at plus 1100. Won here last year, sets up perfectly. He's a shorter hitter by nature, but again, that gets mitigated here. And his approach game has been really stellar. And he's specifically really good from some of the shorter proximities that we're going to be looking at, that 125 to 150 for him versus like 100 to 125 for other guys. So really, really like Tom Kim, and I don't really see any reason why he might not repeat here.
Question for you. Why would someone like, I get why Tom Kim would be in this, but why would someone else like, say his first name again, pronounce that one more time.
Ludwig.
Why would he compete here when he's so hot, and he's just been doing damage? Is it because he's young? Is that why he's trying to get these reps right now?
Yeah, I think he's trying to get out there. I think he's trying to make sure that he's staying in form. I think with the swing wraparound extended season, however you want to refer to it nowadays, I think the tendency is to take a few months off. And with him,
Yeah.
he's just kind of starting to heat up. He's getting his feet wet. And I think he just wants to keep the sword sharp. So I'm not surprised to see him in this field. And frankly, I mean, a win's a win. He can come out and win this. I mean, it's still a lesser field. And he can probably bring like his B+ game and still compete. So it's not surprising to see him here, but again, there's just some question marks with him that
Yeah.
I think are question marks to him too. He had an amazing Sunday last week, which is the only reason that he got back in contention, because he was kind of right in the middle of the top 10, top 20 going into Sunday. So, there's some execution pieces and some mental game that he needs to sharpen up a bit, but I think we'll see him get some reps in before the actual season kicks off.
What holds Tom Kim back from winning this, if anything? Because to me, the only thing is the course experience. He might have a little less than some of these other guys. Yes, he came in last year, first time in this event, and won it. But we have other guys, Siwoo Kim, who's played this course a lot, Adam Hadwin, who's played this course a lot, Adam Schenk. There's some of these other bigger names who have been around for a while. And do you worry about that at all with Tommy?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the guys you just named after are other guys that I want to not only bet, but also want to play in DFS. So I definitely think that there's possibility that Tom Kim comes out and does what Tom Kim can do, which is get wayward off the tee, be short and wayward off the tee. Sometimes his approach game can falter a little bit, especially from the longer distances. So there are some holes in Tom Kim's game from time to time, but right now, the trend he's on, the form he's in, and on a course that he absolutely picked apart last year. Patrick Cantlay was supposed to show up and just take this place by storm. And Tom Kim kind of bitch slapped him and said, I don't think so.
Let's move down the board, because you're obviously interested then 11-1 for Tom Kim, and then Aberg down there at 12-1 as well. You like Siwoo Kim, it sounds like, here, coming in with a lot of course experience for Siwoo. Tied for 8th last year. Missed the cut, though, in 2022. 2021, 8th, and then top 15 all the way back in 2019. So Siwoo Kim, a little bit of merit here. How do you feel about him? Cam Davis. We got JT Poston, who I've been reading a lot on the internet today, and it seems like JT is a nice sleeper pick for a lot of people as well.
Let's see. Start with who should we start with? Siwoo. So with Siwoo, I think the miscut you're talking about, I think that was at a time where Siwoo was a lot more volatile. Over pretty much the entire 2023 season, like Siwoo's kind of proven, like I would say arguably had the best season he's ever had.
It's been consistent as hell. Yeah.
And I think he's learned to do some things, like his scrambling has gotten better. His putter was better. It's still a little streaky, but better. Some of the stuff that he would get into off the tee, not real great, but over the last 24 rounds, he's still in the top 5 for strokes gained off the tee. So that's in form. Approach game's in form. I think the thing with Siwoo that still can be a little suspect from time to time is that approach game from about 150 in. And when you get a wedge in his hand, he can be just blazing hot, or, we can get a little bit of Siwoo regression. And over the last 24, it's a little more regression on that. But Siwoo also hits the ball a lot farther than some of the other guys we're talking about. So I definitely like the idea of Siwoo here, and I think it's a pretty reasonable number in a field like this. So, let's see, Cam Davis. Cam Davis is a lot like Siwoo archetype-wise. Cam Davis, you're going to have a longer hitter. Wedge game is suspect from time to time. I think a couple of things I really do like about him that stand out, though, is he's excellent on par 5 scoring, and he's going to be even better on par 5s that are going to play even shorter than what they measure. So as a matter of fact, he's number 7 in this field. So we like that. He's also number 4 over the last 24 in approach from 125 to 150. So just a couple of metrics that we like about Cam Davis. And he's been kind of rounding into form lately. He's been really good at avoiding big numbers, number 8 in the field for bogey avoidance. So Cam Davis is another guy that I like, and kind of a rest of this is kind of a sea of mediocrity. And I think Cam Davis can definitely take it down if he shows up. Let's see, JT Poston.
I think the thing I like about Cam Davis before we get to Poston is he's shown consistency at some even like pretty sized decent events. Top 10 at the 3M Open earlier this season, the Wyndham, top 7 as well, top 6 at the FedEx St. Jude Championship. I mean, that was a really great field at the FedEx. So like I think here against a little bit of a dialed back crowd, I think he could really compete. Only thing I guess he's coming off of is the BMW Championship was not great there, did hit over par. I think that's kind of really the one blemish, at least on the recent form for Mr. Davis.
Yeah. So on, I thought you said Siwoo, but yeah, on Cam Davis, yeah, I think he definitely can. Like I said, I think if you look at what he just did back at the Fortinet too, which is the most recent start he's had, he gained strokes in every category. Lightning hot putter, his around the green game was good, which you may need here if you inevitably miss a green. Again, the biggest thing with him was his approach game. His approach game was just kind of flat. He gained about 0.3 of a stroke over the field, which for, in that field was enough to get a T3. So, I mean, Cam Davis, I think, is again one of those guys. It just is going to take him putting it all together and having a couple of flushed approach shots over the course of the weekend, and he should be right there. So,
okay, all right. What do you like about our boy JT then?
Poston, I think, again, more of a recency deal. He is leading this field in bogey avoidance. That's important. Par 4 scoring, he's number 2 in the field. Predominantly shorter par 4s here, given the elevation change. Outside of that, he's really consistent in every metric we're looking at. He's nothing outstanding. But then when you go and look at some of the tournament history, he's got a T20 and a T27. But what's interesting about him is more on the side of the actual stroke gain metrics at this course.
Okay.
He rates out in the top 32 for total strokes gained, which is not magnificent, but he also is in the top 20 in every approach category we can look at for proximities on this course. And those shorter irons, which we hope he's going to get in his hands more frequently, he gets dropping down into the top 10. So there's just a lot of things about JT Post. And again, he's just one of those guys that in a lesser field could pop. And we like the number on him is the biggest thing. So,
okay. Let's move down the board a little bit. Some names that kind of stuck out to me, Connor. Eric Cole, we know this guy. He's jacked AF. Like, we've been waiting for it. His time is coming. You've been calling your shot for months and months now. JJ Spawn, he's another guy you've had your eye on for a while. And when is Emiliano Grillo going to get it done? Like this is the type of field I feel like this guy steps up in. But when is it coming? That's what I want to know.
See, and Grillo is one. I really don't like him this week. I like,
and that's like the consensus. I feel like you're not alone. I feel like most experts do not.
Yeah, everything's set up for him to do well, and then he just kind of fizzles, and this is kind of what he does. And the other thing about him is he really doesn't have good history here. I mean, he's just not. You take kind of the like faltering form, add that with a place that he's traditionally not done super great at. There's other guys in those price ranges that I just like a little bit better. Grillo to me is a little too volatile, especially when, like guys like Adam Hadwin, who's a little shorter than him, but has good course history, good approach game, shorter hitter, more controlled, better putter. Or, the guy that I surprisingly like this week that rated out really well is Aaron Rai. And Aaron Rai, you get 10 more points than you get on Grillo. He's plus 5,500. And Aaron Rai is, again, just very steadfast. As I built my model for DFS, he rated out number 2. So, like, as you kind of weight all the metrics, including course history, he just kind of bubbles to the top. He's a very controlled golfer when he's on. He's very good from the approach metrics we're looking at. And again, it's more of a consistency piece with him. Like, I'd rather get the 10 points over Grillo, who I think is volatile. And we kind of glossed over Eric Cole. If you want to read more about Eric Cole, go check out my betting column.
Every week it's in there,
week,
folks. Every single. I know that I get to edit Connor's column every week. I know this kid's birthday. I know this kid's hometown. I know this kid's favorite pasta place. I know everything about Eric Cole at this point. So
big friend of the show.
Yeah. As we move down the list here, Connor, are there other people that you are urging to take the outright on, or is this where we switch to the prop market? Because obviously we've seen some different players win in the swing season already. I mean, I don't know how high you were on List last week, Luke List, when he pulled out that win, or Tigala, but like Tigala was at least a name I think was on a lot of people's radar. I know List is kind of a hit or miss player at times, especially with the stick.
We had List in our DFS pool, but we weren't super high on him. And it again goes to your point. And ironically, the guy wins on a 45-foot clutch putt in a playoff. I mean, go figure.
Yeah.
No, actually, Luke List is somebody that I would look at again this week too. Just mentioning him. The form's decent. He seems to have figured out how to putt at least in some modicum of consistency. But yeah, I think the guys in there, Vincent Norman, another guy I wrote up, you can definitely go read about him. He's definitely a very volatile play, but he is one of the young guns that you could definitely get away with throwing a couple bets at. His odds are a little bit short, in my opinion, at 35 to 1. He's probably more of a DFS play. I will have him on the betting card. He's another guy that I've been kind of banging the drum for quite a while. Matt Neesmith is somebody at 70 to 1 that we were talking about in the pre-show. And Matt Neesmith is not somebody that I typically will run to the window to bet, but sets up really well here. Actually has been in relatively good form. I believe in his last 4 starts here, he had 2 T10s and 2 T20s. No missed cuts. So this is a place that he feels very comfortable. And again, he's got the right skill set for it. Shorter hitter, very accurate off the tee. And then you marry that with some of the approach metrics that he has. And he did one of those guys that when he's on does like to knock it close, can score birdies in bunches. So 70 to 1 is pretty reasonable for a guy with good course history, I think.
All right. One of my picks that I want to throw out that just kind of digging a little more into this guy, and I hope I pronounce his name right. Alex Smalley is that the correct name? All right, there we go. So I think what I like about him is we talked about it earlier in the show, but this is the same course that the dude designed from the Travelers. Alex Smalley was a surprise top 10 finish there. You can get him right now for a top 30 at plus 110 and 45 to 1 on the outright. Second in the John Deere, which I feel like is another, I don't want to say it's a similar course, Connor, but it's another course that kind of a birdie fest, you know? And so I feel like in this type of field, we might see something from him. How do you feel about him and anyone else that we haven't talked about for the outright portion?
Yeah, Alex Smalley, and he just finished 16th at Sanderson. So, I mean, good form right now. He is, again, kind of to your point. He's just somebody that has kind of started popping up here and there. 9th at the Travelers, 18th at the Wells Fargo before that. He's got a couple of miscuts in there, but I mean, you know, a 2 at John Deere, 16 at Sanderson Farms. You know, the red flag is probably what he did at the St. Jude, but that's a tougher field, tougher course.
Yeah, and I'll throw out the Scottish Open for a guy like him. You know what I mean? I think you have to a little bit. I'll give him a hall pass there.
Yeah, we'll give him a hall pass on a couple of these. But no, I think in this field, Alex Smalley, I think that's a really good value. You know, I don't have his tournament history directly in front of me. I can look at it, but yeah, I mean, he's got 1 start here, and it was a T47. So, I mean, he made the cut here. That was 2 years ago. You know, he's a different golfer now, much more consistent. So, yeah, I don't hate that one at all, man.
Okay. And Connor, I know we had down at the very bottom of the board, we had a notable entry this week.
Yeah, so if you want to get a little wild, Lexi Thompson will be the 7th woman making a start in the PGA event. She got an exception.
Yes.
And I would hope that if you're a golf fan, you know who Lexi Thompson is. But if you don't, she is a world-class women's player. She's got 2 top 10s in her last few starts. She did have a pretty notable string of about 10 missed cuts prior to that. But she is somebody who generally rates out really well on the women's tour. She's not the longest hitter on the women's tour. She's in the top 10. She averages about 270 yards off the tee. She does hit fairways at around a 60% clip. Her approach game, pretty solid. One big red flag with Lexi Thompson, not the world's best putter. But what I will say about this is she probably is right in the middle of this pack, and all she would have to do is get hot to really actually compete here. And we've got some pretty seriously deep numbers on her, including an outright at 2,500 to 1. I say it all the time on this show, I've spent $5 on dumber shit.
Yeah. I mean, dude, she's fucking jacked. Like she is jacked, and I think, sometimes it's just fun to follow the story in sports. And I don't think I could, even though the number is insane, and even if you laid down, a little bit of money and got back on that, I think like look for the top 40 market for her. She's 7.5 to 1 for a top 40. Do you think there's a realistic chance that she could make this cut and play into the weekend and grab that top 40 position for you, Connor?
I think it's a 50-50. I think she does have the all-around game to compete with the guys. There's definitely no doubt about that. She is a very, very, very gifted golfer. It's not one of those deals for a woman. You know what I mean? It's not a for a woman deal. She is a very good golfer. So she absolutely can compete here. I'm with you. The outright is, chasing rainbows a little bit.
Yeah.
But I do like some of those, the top 40, even the top 20. I mean, it's not beyond the realm of outcomes that she could compete with these guys. So I like throwing a couple of bucks at it, to be honest. I think it's a great story. I think she's very deserving of an opportunity to play with the guys. And I think she may shut some people up too.
Okay. All right. Connor, anyone else you want to talk about, whether it's a prop bet or whether it's an outright here before we close out the betting segment? There's a lot of guys that at one point, I feel like as a show we were on, the Peter Quest of the world, the Ash Kays of the world, Austin Eckroat, like Hayden Buckley, Callum Tarrant, that's my guy right there. And like, I feel like they've kind of just fizzled down to the kind of the mid tier of what's even a watered down field this week.
I think with those guys, it's course fit. Like Peter Quest, I'll have a FOMO bet, but I'm not. I can't keep advocating for Peter Quest until he irons out some of the spots in his game just a little bit. Like he's very, very good and he's liable to go off. He'll probably win this week because I'm not touting him. But Peter Quest is somebody that I wouldn't be opposed to. As far as prop bets go, I really like the top Euro bet on Vincent Norman and Aaron Rai. Vincent Norman's at plus 600 for top Euro. Aaron Rai is at plus 750. And going back, they're up against Aberg. And the deal with him is, like I said, I don't think it's far-fetched to think that if he gets a little wild off the tee, that one of these guys right below him in terms of ranking with much better numbers would end up being the top Euro. Top American, Eric Cole, 20 to 1. Love that bet.
Go, baby.
Top Asian, Tom Kim, even though it's only plus 175, I genuinely believe he may win again. So plus 175 with your outright doesn't seem like a bad plan. And then first round leader again, Tom Kim plus 2200.
That's a pretty generous number. I feel like that's being left out there. That's a tempting one right there.
That one, and then the other one, and if Bo were here, he'd appreciate this one. Kevin Yu is back in the field. He's a guy that we are just waiting. We're just waiting. He's gonna pop up one of these times.
Is he a DP World Tour guy?
Kevin Yu has only been back since like July. He had a knee surgery.
That's right.
And he was setting the world on fire before that. I mean, he was playing a lot of really good golf. And then we had the injury setback. So he's only been back since July. He went right into like peak big field events, and no wonder he didn't do incredibly well. And then he's one of the guys a lot like Hayden Buckley. It's funny you mentioned him. Kevin Yu is really similar. Kevin Yu will go out and start really well, and then I don't know if he has one too many Tito's sodas in the clubhouse Thursday.
Yeah, it gets a little rowdy. Yeah.
So we just need him to string together 4 consecutive days of like decent golf.
Come on, Kevin, put the boozing under control for a little bit. Let's finish something out here.
But to that point, right, they're hanging 100 to 1 on first round leader, and he generally does start out pretty good. So I do like that 100 to 1 on Kevin Yu for first round leader.
Okay. One of the ones that I want to bring to you before we hop over to DFS is I found it kind of an interesting number out there. The big guns versus the field here on DraftKings. You can get Tom Kim, Aberg, and Davis plus 380 versus the field. Obviously, you're not taking the field at minus 550, but is packaging those top 3 something you would advise here if you're looking to? Obviously, like I know the outrights are going to bring you a better bang for your buck, but if you're concerned about not losing units, packaging the top 3 doesn't sound like a bad choice to me.
Yeah, I can definitely get behind that. I think it's a really good call, and objectively, those are my 3 picks to be the outright winner anyway. So So, I mean, I like where your head's at. I think if I was kind of weary of anybody, again, it's Aberg, Obear, whatever, however you want to pronounce his name.
Yeah.
And it's just because I know the possibility of the errant shots. Like they are there, they are in the stack.
Yeah.
And I think right now we're blinded by the new shiny, exciting thing. And I'm trying to trust some numbers, and the numbers say that he may have some troubles here. We'll see.
All right, well, let's break it down from a DFS perspective here in our next segment, which is going to be none other than Trunk Slams.
The club as well. This would be a wrestling slam.
All right. No trunk slams. We got some DFS we're going to cover. And looking at the top of the board here, we've talked about these guys already. Aberg, Davis, Tom Kim, but they're also the most expensive golfers. So how do we package this together in a DFS lineup, Connor? Are we going all out at the top of the board and then throwing darts at the bottom of it? Or how does this work out for us?
So I would start by saying I think there's some values in the nines that allow you to build a more balanced lineup so that you're not dumpster diving at the bottom with guys that have some win equity. But the thing with DFS, it's very different. And it's hard to make the transition from about the outright. Is if I got 6 guys that get through the cut, it's much better than having the guy that wins and only having 4 guys that make it through the cut. So I will have shares of Aberg, Kim, and Davis. Probably at this point, ownership projection wise, leaning Cam Davis at 15.6 projected versus 26 for Tom Kim and 24 for Aberg. So I definitely said it in my article. I've said it in the pre-show. Like I'm not gonna pay 30+% for Aberg. I don't trust. Okay. I like the outright on him because I definitely think he can win. But I also think that he's very live to finish outside of the top 20 too. And at the top price player, and knowing that, a quarter to a third of the field is going to be on him, I'll just go ahead and take a pass on him in DFS and try and hedge it with my outright.
Okay. Let's keep on towards the top of the board here. We got guys like JJ Spawn in this 8 to 9 tier. We got Herbert. We have Adam Hadwin, Grillo, who's just been an absolute, say what you want about Grillo, but he has been a tank for DFS lineups more times than not. He's a guy who makes a lot of cuts, 22 out of 29 so far. Do you like anyone else in this top tier here in the 8-9 range, Connor?
Eric Cole, obviously at 9,800. I don't want to drop down too far and skip him. JT Poston at 10 flat with only 4% projected. I really like that. I think that's an interesting way to start. Grillo, again, there's too many what ifs and red flags for me to be jumping out paying 9,400 for Grillo. Adam Hadwin is somebody that I have a lot of interest in, but I'm not alone. A lot of sharp people are on Adam Hadwin too. We're projecting around 25 to 27%.
Yeah. It's a tough one to swallow a little bit at that price.
It definitely is. So I think some of the pivots that you can make, if you don't want to eat the Adam Hadwin chalk. Now I am going to eat the Adam Hadwin chalk. I really like him here. I'm going to play him. But if you don't want to do that, some pretty good pivots are Aaron Rye is only projected at 6.6, and you drop down considerably. You save yourself $500 going down to him.
Okay.
And then my guy, Vincent Norman, if you like volatility and you like a leverage play, he's right there at the exact same price as Aaron Rye at 4.4%. So if you like the volatility on 2 guys that have very high upside, 8,800 on either one of them or both of them, if you're building a balanced lineup, would make you very, very different very, very quickly.
Okay, let's drop down into the mid-range here, the 7,000s, the 6,000s. Who's jumping out to you here? Because this is where I think we need to be mindful of our budgets and pick some of those guys who can they just get us across the weekend? Can they not go home early? That's, I think, what we're looking for. Quest is kind of a guy like right in that range, man. 7,200. It's limited sample size with Quest, right? But 7 of 9 cuts for him. So how do you feel about him? A guy who's averaging over 70 DraftKings points per contest still.
Yeah, I'll be going back to the well a little bit on Peter Quest. The biggest red flag with him is that proximity range 125 to 150, but he hits the ball so damn far that I don't think that that's going to be as big an issue. I think he's going to be coming in from around that 125 range, which he's significantly better at.
Fantastic.
Your guy Callum Tarrant actually pops a little bit too at 7,200 at low ownership. I might take a couple swings at him. He actually rates out on this course for total strokes gained in the top 60. We need him to do a little better than that to return value.
Yeah, he just misses a shit ton of cuts now. That's the thing. That's like what you're kind of risking with him. Same with Cam Champ. I feel like in that range as well. He's another guy like when that dude's on, he's on, but he just tanks your lineups if not.
Yeah, and there's guys in here that I just like significantly better. Like I really, really like Doug Gim in DFS. Like as I built my model, Doug Gim popped to number 1 in here. So Doug Gim at 7,800 is somebody that I'll have a lot of shares of. Sam Ryder, 7,400, popped at number 6 in my model. So I'll definitely have some shares of Sam Ryder. And then getting down again, going back to Matt Neesmith. Now, Matt Neesmith is not going to model out tremendously well, but with the course history and some of the specific to the course analytics, Neesmith at 7,100, I think is actually a pretty decent play. You got to remember he has gained more strokes on this course than anyone else in this field.
It's insane when you look at this guy's track record, Connor. I mean, I think he just waits all year and he's like, I can't wait to go to Vegas. I'm going to party with the boys. I'm going to like, he's probably been there for weeks. He might have a fucking condo there for all we know.
Yeah, he's just whining and dining, chilling next to the pool, just getting a few last minutes of raise. But yeah, I think that that's a really compelling stat, and we glossed over it in the betting. But he's gained something like 33 total strokes over his 4 starts at this course. So yeah, take a look at Matt Neesmith, 7,100. I think it's a really good value. And then Chesson Hadley popped for a couple of things. Course history, and this is at 7,100. Course history was a big one, but his par 4 scoring, he's in the top 6, and bogeys avoided over the last 24 rounds. He's top 3. And then he's also excellent from the proximity ranges on approach that we looked at. So not a guy I play often, but 7,100 on a guy that has good course history and kind of fits the archetype I'm looking for. I like that.
Okay. Let's move down to the lower tiers. Is there anyone that we can throw out that if we do want to build a heavy lineup that we can toss a couple darts at? I'm seeing Andrew Novak's name down in the 6,300 range. He's been a guy who more times than not, I feel like you can count on him. 16 and 23 cuts made, averaging a hell of a lot more DK points than I feel like people in that range. We got Scott Piercy right up in there as well. Who in this range to you, Connor, is sticking out that we can maybe throw a couple darts at to round out the lineup?
So these are gross, but they're with reason. So I'll run through them quick for you. But Kevin Yu is down here at 7 flat. I already talked about him. All we need is a solid 4 rounds. And I do like him at that 7 flat price. Right below him at 6,900, Carson Young. Very good off the tee, makes a lot of birdies in bunches, has had some good form and spurts over the last 6 months. In a field like this, 6,900 actually seems a little cheap for him, the value that he represents. Justin Lauer is somebody that I looked at a little bit and specifically has good course history, rates out in the top 30 in this field.
Okay.
Scores well on par 4s, rates out 12th. And then his overall approach is actually in the top 20. So for a guy that's at 6,600 rather, to be in the top 20 for all the approach metrics that pertain to this course, that's a really nice value proposition. And I think people should take notice of that. And then, oh God, Bo's going to roast me when he hears this, but I am going to play Ryan Moore at 6,500.
Ooh, okay.
Rates out number 5 for overall strokes gained on this course over the history of his career in this field. Rates out 9th in opportunities gained on shorter courses, which for people that don't know what that stat is, he's knocking the ball very close and giving himself a look at birdie or better.
He's been terrible lately, though. He got cut last week, 45th at the Fortinet, like cut at the Wyndham last time he was there early August. Like the form's not there, man.
We like this guy on a course that he's familiar with that requires shorter play. And he rates out number 5 in this field, even over the last 36 rounds for the approach metrics we're looking at. So he's very, very good from the landing areas that he's going to be in. He doesn't lose a ton of strokes off the tee. The biggest holdup with him is he probably is not going to win, but I think he's going to make your cut, and I think he's going to be somewhere in that top 30 range. And that's really all you need from a guy at $6,500. But in transparency, Seth, I will not be playing anybody sub 7 very often this week. So
Okay. Yeah, I'm just saying, man, with him, he's one of those guys. I think he might be paying the tour money more than the tour paying him money with how many weekends he's going home early. I know we touched on her in betting. Any love for Lexi Thompson? It's 6,100. I don't know how many people are going to have the cojones to play her here. She is coming off a top 5 in the LPGA Ascendant Championship, the Walmart Arkansas Championship, 8th for her. So she's in good form for the women's. And she's been crushing it. If you play LPGA DraftKings at all, like 80, 79, 81 points the last couple times out. Can you get behind her here though in DK or is it too risky?
I don't think it's any riskier than anybody else down below 6,500. We kind of touched on it. She is a very real professional golfer. I mean, like, just because a lot of people don't watch the LPGA doesn't mean that her skills are any less substantial than a lot of these guys in this field.
For sure.
I probably have a couple of lineups where I go studs and duds. Just throw a couple at her. I definitely think that she could make the cut. And again, going back to the Ryan Moore piece, form and stature aside, like, all you got to do is make the cut at this price, get me a couple points on the weekend, and I'm happy. So when you're stacking heavy up top, if you want to go like Aberg Kim to start a lineup, you're going to have to get dirty down here.
Yeah.
And I think Ryan Moore and Lexi Thompson are two people that you could definitely be relatively confident could get through the cut.
Okay. Relatively confident. I like that. Any final shots that we haven't talking about from a DFS perspective, or any other final advice as we head out here to Las Vegas for the Shriners Children's Open?
At least in all the research I did, man, like, the course history does seem to be a sticky stat. Like, the guys that play well here almost every time they tee it up. There's, of course, some risk with all these guys, especially being that it's a lesser field. But, like I said, I wouldn't buy into necessarily all the hype on the shiny new thing at the top. I love it. Very good. Yeah. But when you got to probably 30, 40%, I don't know, man, that's a tall price.
Awesome. Well, guys, he is Conor Coughlin. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at @Cough_DFS to get all your DFS PGA betting advice. Check out our website. We have some great content coming out over there as well. A lot of PGA DFS, PGA betting articles weekly, and all the fantasy football, fantasy NASCAR advice you guys could use. Thank you so much for tuning in. Easiest way to support Conor and myself is just subscribing to the channel here, though. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of video. And hey, Conor, let's have a timeout in Vegas, baby. And I'll see you back here soon, my friend.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers. Take care, everyone. Have a good night. Hey, thank you, man.